Radical ownership. Welcome to your daily hit of grace and grit, your quick dose of inspiration to kickstart your day. This show is proudly sponsored by Rumble and Rise. To find out more about joining Rumble and Rise, head on over to graceandgrit.com/ready to rumble. I'm Courtney Townley, and here is today's hit. There's a truth that's powerful only when it's understood correctly. Your life may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. And I want to be really clear about what that means because I think it's really often misunderstood. There are things that happened in your life: trauma, betrayal, loss, instability, neglect, that were never your choice and never your fault. You are not responsible for the harm done to you, the systems you grew up in, or the circumstances that shaped your early survival patterns. But here's where responsibility does come in. Even when something wasn't your fault, it likely shaped patterns you now carry, patterns that do become yours to work with as an adult. That is the bridge between not my fault and my responsibility. You didn't choose the conditions that created your coping mechanisms, but those coping mechanisms, avoidance, people-pleasing, perfectionism, shutting down, overfunctioning, numbing out, buffering, can continue running your life if you don't consciously interrupt them. That is what radical ownership means. Not owning the harm, owning the patterns the harm created. Because those patterns influence your health in really big ways. They influence your boundaries, your relationships, your decisions, your self-leadership, and really your future. Radical ownership sounds like asking yourself, what part of this dynamic is being driven by old patterns? Where am I acting from habit instead of alignment? How am I continuing a cycle that no longer serves me? How am I contributing to my own suffering? What is within my influence to shift even slightly? This is self-awareness with agency. And look, like a lot of people never lean into this work because ownership, radical ownership, requires compassion because some of your patterns were absolutely about survival and safety and self-soothing. Radical ownership requires courage because seeing yourself clearly is very vulnerable. Meeting yourself where you're at feels scary. Radical ownership requires honesty because everything does not belong to someone else. And it requires responsibility because some parts are yours to shift now. And the hard truth that most people avoid is, of course, you can't undo what wasn't your fault, but you can change what that experience continues to create in your life. If you didn't cause the wound, that's not your responsibility. But healing the way that wound still directs your choices, that is your work. And that is where your power lies. So today, choose one area where the results you're getting aren't quite matching the life you want. And instead of collapsing into blame towards yourself or others, I want you to ask, what part of this pattern is mine to work with now? What is the smallest shift I'm willing to take responsibility for right now around this result? Your life doesn't transform when the past stops being painful. It transforms when you start reclaiming the parts of your present that you can influence. And there's so much you can influence. That is great news. That's the moment. Responsibility becomes power, and ownership becomes freedom. If this stirred something inside of you, imagine what a whole book of clarity and courage could ignite. The Consistency Code, A Midlife Woman's Guide to Deep Health and Happiness, goes even deeper into the mindset and practices that create real, meaningful change at midlife. Grab your copy today over at theconsistencycode.com and keep the momentum alive.